Fear. Fear hasn't always just been an emotion for me. It's felt like it was something more than that. At 3 years old, it was already pretty dark. I woke up one morning so excited to play with this new balloon that I got at the fair the previous night. I remember almost pestering my dad to buy me this balloon or I wouldn't go home without it. And he did. And I had a great time. I played with it until I went to bed. And naturally, I woke up in the morning and the first thought was this big fancy balloon that was waiting in the living room for me. It was what I called a silk balloon because it was this big, transparent, shiny balloon which had all these smaller little balloons inside it. And I was very fascinated because I was bored with regular balloons, and this time I wanted to play with a silk balloon. So I got out of bed. I didn't brush my teeth or anything. I just ran straight into the living room and picked up the balloon. It was quite a big one, given that I was only 3, and this was pretty big in comparison to, I think, my size. So I picked up this balloon and I wanted to just bounce it up to the ceiling and play with it. I did that, and the balloon burst as soon as it left my hands and shot up towards the ceiling. That moment kind of, I think, changed the course of my life in ways that I didn't think it would. As I stood there and saw these tiny balloons just fall towards me, fall towards my face, I remember freezing, and then I ran out of the room. It almost felt like something was falling up from the skies that was going to consume me or eat me up alive. So I remember crying and I ran out of that room, and I was terrified to step back out, just even knowing that those balloons were still in the living room. I remember I threw a fit until my mom pulled all of them out of the living room and gave them away to, I think, the neighbor's kids or someone. I couldn't even recall, but I just needed to make sure that they were no longer in the house. It was a really hard day, and my nervous system, I think, for the first time experienced shock, and nothing seemed normal again after that. That fear kind of stayed with me all through my life until quite recently. I didn't know at the time that it was called a phobia, globophobia. And I didn't know that as a 3-year-old child, I would hold on to that phobia every minute, every day, going through life. It impacted how I went to school. It impacted me as I was terrified of attending birthday parties as a child. I didn't want to participate in a Christmas celebration, a New Year celebration. The very definition of my birthday parties changed after that, and I stopped going to anyone else's party. I didn't think at the time that this would take root within me as something that just stayed on for decades after. But it wasn't just about the balloons. My natural response to any situation became fear. This continued all through my life, and as I grew older, it even continued into my relationships. I was building relationships based on codependency and insecurity. So by my 30s, fear almost became like my shadow. It became a constant companion. I didn't know that I would live with fear every single day of my life in so many different forms and fashions. This naturally took a toll on my body. I think this experience with fear manifested as the perfect storm. I felt sick. I had all kinds of issues from autoimmune disorders to a pituitary gland tumor, endometriosis, cystic ovaries, muscle loss, and just constant chronic pain. I think I lived for a decade of my life just feeling pain every single day, not being able to go through life without feeling some sort of a constriction and restriction all the time because you just can't do what everybody else does very easily. I was frustrated naturally, and it came with a lot of negative self talk. I started treating my body like it was some fragile piece of equipment, like just one more thing and it's just going to break forever. This didn't serve me well because it's like this vicious cycle that keeps going on, and sometimes you just don't know how to break out of it. But I knew I had to make a change. That change didn't come easy. Like change is never easy. There were several pieces of my life that changed drastically. Several pillars that I thought were built to stay fell apart. But on the other side of that change, I knew there was going to be something different waiting for me. So, moving past that fear, I decided to actually make a change. It came in very simple ways to start with. It started off with just changing the language that I used about myself. From saying that I am weak or my body can't do this, I started saying that my body is just learning something new. It's just learning to adapt. I remember repeating this mantra almost: I'm strong, I'm strength, I'm health, and I'm healthy. This was playing in the back of my mind almost every day. And I know that somewhere it was taking root at a more deeper level. My body was listening. This journey came with a lot of paths that I could potentially take. And I did take several of them, but I feel like they all culminated to bringing me to where I am today. Yoga, meditation, grounding, physical training, therapy. There were so many modalities that gave me what I needed in every single moment. It's been a journey, and it's not to say that fear doesn't exist today. It still pops its head back up from time to time, but at least it doesn't own the house. And for that, I'm grateful. Most recently, I did something that terrified me. I learned to ride a motorcycle, which I didn't think I ever would do. After my training, the first day that I got onto the bike thinking, okay, this is the day I'm going to go out and ride and have a great time. I remember getting onto the bike, freezing once again. I hyperventilated for what seemed like hours, though it was probably just minutes. And then I just got off the bike and called it, saying, I don't think I can ever do this. It took an entire day of dejection and sleeping through it the next morning. I decided to not let fear rule the day once again. So it was just making that commitment and telling myself that it's okay. We're safe. I'm safe and I can do this. So I got back on the saddle and I rode through the Nilgiri Mountains, and it was absolutely beautiful. I actually ended up enjoying myself. So for the first time, I feel like I wasn't completely overtaken by that fear. I wasn't looking for an escape route anymore. I was just looking at the road ahead. And that's such a beautiful contrast for me because growing up, I was that child who hid behind a curtain or hid underneath a table or hid behind my sister. I just never wanted to be seen. And that was again all a fear response. And somehow all of that came back as I was on that bike the first day, even being in just my neighborhood and seeing people around me and wondering, what are they thinking? And just that whole salient feeling. Once again, I didn't want to be seen. But as I worked through that and I got back from this really amazing ride, all of those shadows just disappeared. And it was a moment of victory. So I feel like I'm here today just to share parts of my story with you. These are stories of breaking past limitations, moving from fear to freedom. And I think at the crux of it all, just saying yes to life and not feeling like I have to run away anymore. I've been so fortunate that through this journey, I've had amazing people who've left an imprint. Teachers, guides, coaches, bosses, friends, family, and of course, my guru. So I hope to bring you some of these stories as well. Stories that inspire, stories that give hope. They gave me hope. And it's my wish that they give you that as well. So with that, I welcome you to my podcast, Inwardly with Sanjana. I hope that you will join me as I continue to walk this path of moving into a new life and a new me. See you there.